Yeah, don't just start spraying Axe everywhere. Freshman used to do that crap. Like, really? Yeah. Give people asthma attacks and stuff. They're spraying that stuff everywhere. It's like, for one thing, it's for guys. Second thing, it doesn't smell good. No, not really. Well, yeah. It depends on the cologne, really. It also depends on how much you use. If you can smell it without being, like, next to someone, you use too much. For reals. Yeah! Lisa, can I have some more? No! Yes, Oliver Twist? Nobody? Lisa, can I have some more? Oh! Freaks out. Yeah.
Do we need to know like all these events and flares?
Yes! What?
Where is the last
But yeah, Great Expectations, all those things. Dickens, let's talk about him. Victor Hugo, we've seen his work. Hey, it is. Also, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which, by the by, is totally different than what most people are familiar with. Because I find that most people are familiar with the Disney Hunchback of Notre Dame. That is nothing like the original story. Like the characters are the same, but like the ending is totally different. Like there's no happy ending in Hunchback of Notre Dame. In the Hunchback of Notre Dame, everyone's dead. Everyone dies. Okay, well, in you know, in the Disney film, it's, you know, everyone lives happily ever after, you know. In the real story, basically it goes as you've got a deformed person who is the bell ringer hunchback, you know, of Notre Dame, Notre Dame Cathedral. He is taken in by the sort of deacon, or not deacon, bishop of the area, who is really kind of conniving and not really the nicest person, wants to, like, you know, kill all people who are of the gypsy persuasion, Roma, basically. And then you have this really, really pretty girl who may or may not be a prostitute, we're not really sure, who Quasimodo, you know, the hunchback, falls in love with. And there's also kind of a handsome, dashing captain of the guard who is actually portrayed as kind of a nice guy in the Disney movie. In the actual Hunchback of Notre Dame, he basically sleeps with Esmeralda and then just doesn't really care about her. It's like, you know, I got mine, and that's about all he worries about. And so she ends up dying because the priest wants to take her, kidnap her, and rape her, and basically Quasimodo saves her, but she dies, and he ends up... No. Although, to be perfectly honest, the Disney movie isn't all like... Because you guys who have seen it, you remember that scene where there's the priest saying about how...
You showed us that video.
Okay, yeah. That one. It's all right. So even with, you know, that, it's still not great. The point is that, you know, Victor Hugo, you read his work, it's like everyone is sad, the end. But no, it's not just about that, to be perfectly honest. It's really a counterculture movie. You guys familiar with the term counterculture? Okay, take what's popular, it's crap, really. That's counterculture. Usually what happens is something parents or adults like, the younger generation's like, what the? We're doing something different. Usually it's the exact opposite. This has been going on for centuries. For instance, you have folks like, Frozen's the greatest Disney movie ever made. There are people like, it's way overrated, it's crap. That's counterculture. You see what I'm saying? Sure, whatever. Like I said, centuries, right? Well, here's the thing is, realism is a countercultural movement against romanticism. Romanticism is all about, everything's great. It's emotions, it's powerful, it's wonderful. And realism's like, and life sucks also. Let's not forget the sucking part. And so you have this whole backlash, like whereas romantic stories are like, you know, and everything was fantastic. And realism's like, and then everyone dies, the end. So it's like George R. R. Martin. Anyways. Game of Thrones, anybody know? Anyways. One thing that I will say about art during the realistic period is that it's actually also answering a bit to the invention of photography. Because photography sort of comes about during this era, and one thing that's very interesting about photography, it shows things exactly as they are. You know, I mean, obviously, now you can Photoshop, you know it's nonsense. Not back then. Whenever you take a picture of something, it's literally what it is. You know, that's what paintings have been trying to do for centuries. You know, and doing it now, even the best paintings fall short of photorealism. So it's a matter of trying to compete with that ultimately ends up failing. Here's an example of a realistic painting. One thing we also see a lot of time is realism focuses on the everyday, the mundane, whereas romanticism was sort of like the whimsical notion, the sort of awe-inspiring nature of things versus just this is how they are. But back to actually, let me get to this painting and I'll get on to photos. This is a rather famous painting portraying the French Revolution. Now, first of all, I think you might be wondering, why is there a topless lady in the middle of a battle? I actually never knew that until I asked my wife. This is years ago. So she has a background in art history. And the reason's quite simple, actually. If you look at the face, it looks like a dude.
We have to.
Well, that's why we know it's a female. That's why they did that. True. Very true. However, there are other clues to help us along the way. That's why they did it. But again, one thing is that this is not realism. I mean, this is realism. It's not romanticism. And the simple reason is there's dead people in it. There's all these dead bodies here. It's like that's not what you show in romanticism. Romantic portrayals of war are like, you know, these noble generals leading their men, a flag in one hand, sword in the other, and we're battling. It's great, this high like emotional crescendo. Whereas this is like, you got this too, but all the faces are grim, serious. This is not like romanticizing war. This is bloody and nasty. You got this dude with no pants on at the bottom there. All this nonsense. War is hell. Well, no, that was actually because what happened is that you got a dead body. You know, these are militia essentially. I mean, they're actually just people fighting. They're not even like trained soldiers. And a lot of times what happens is you're out on campaign, you're fighting with things like that. You go in your basic clothes. Clothes wear out. Someone's dead, they don't need anymore. Pull their pants off, take them with you. Okay, now you got a spare pair of pants. Bodies are sometimes like nuded to nothing. They're nude as everything went away, you know. Because what are they needing for anymore? It's a corpse. So, again, realism. This is photographs, though, the Spanish mission. And one thing to understand is photography forever changes history because, again, one of the things we have to understand is paintings up to this point tend to show military conquest and battles in a sort of delicate way. People are sheltered from the realization of what is actually happening in battlefields, you know? And photography starts to change that. And probably the greatest example of that is the American Civil War. There's one infamous photo of a two-story house, and there's a pile of body parts, arms and legs and what have you, that are severed, that go all the way up to the second story. Because what was happening is there was a doctor inside, and they would just cut limbs off left and right to try to stop gangrene from setting in. And they were doing them so fast to try to preserve people's lives, that they would just huck them out a window and keep going. And it built up so high after a while that it's just, the thing is that it shows the real cost of war. It's not just dead, it's also the maimed. People who have to try to live the rest of their lives with some disfigurement, or deformity, or serious injury, you know. This is one of the things that you have to realize. There's another infamous photo of a guy from World War I whose face is completely blown off. He's still alive. He has to try to survive the rest of his life without face. You know? It's a terrible thing. Are you guys familiar with the book Johnny Get Your Gun? No. Oh, Johnny got
Johnny got his gun, I forget what the exact wording is. Basically, what happened was there was a guy who fought, I think it was in World War II, but I could be wrong. And what happened was he was a soldier, either stepped on a landmine or was hit by artillery, I can't remember which, blew both of his arms and both his legs off and basically was comatose. And so they kept him alive in this hospital, and turns out he was fully awake in this whole time. He just couldn't respond because he couldn't move any part of his body. So basically he was trapped in his own mind for quite a while, I don't know, months or years or something to that effect. He eventually was able to communicate, and his message was kill me. Yeah. So, talk about the cost of war. It's very steep. So, on to Impressionism. Now, that's all depressing and disgusting and all that fun stuff. Took place in the mid-1800s. It was sort of started by Edouard Monet, although sometimes there's also debate of Claude Monet. It's this kind of debate. But I also point out that Mary Cassatt was instrumental in its movement in the United States. Keep in mind, women painters were still not really accepted, and yet she was for what she did. Not so much in America. She went to England, though, and she was pretty accepted. And the thing is Impressionism is, again, counterculture to realism. Because the idea behind Impressionism is that just what you see is not necessarily what you get. Just seeing someone realistically, you're not getting the full part of it. Think about it this way. We are constantly doing things to try to get people to notice us or to see us in a specific way. Our behavior changes depending on who we're around. If we're really comfortable with someone, we're going to be one way, and if we're trying to set a good example, like maybe during a job interview, first date, whatever, we're going to act a little bit better in our mind, or rather, what we think someone else might prefer, and kind of hide some of the realities to it. That's a sociological concept called dramaturgy. Basically, we're all actors on a stage, and we have little bits of costuming and mannerisms that we try to portray of what we think someone is supposed to look like. For instance, I find there's this kind of idea parents, they know everything. They have an idea. Parents don't or they hand you a kid and they're like, here you go, now you're responsible for this baby. And you're like, what? There's no test you have to take. You don't have to prove competency. There's a lot of things you realize when you become a brand new parent that, this is a lot harder than I expected. That's the first segment. Okay. All right. Well, you guys have a great weekend. I will see you guys later. Peace.